So look, I want to show you something real quick, okay? Because I'm sitting here, I'm sitting. Oh, no. I'm just sitting against the wall, right? But when I first started, they were pulling like a lot of, they were doing a lot of tricks with my screen. And you know, they broke my front screen on this phone last year. So I was sitting here and I was just like trying to get an angle, and I was wondering why I didn't look like myself at all and why I looked like a borderline addict. Okay, so then I was like, but look, if I get in just a little bit of light, you know, like it, I obviously look a little bit more like I normally do. Watch this. All three different perspectives. So, oh, it didn't record. Okay, look. So that's three different perspectives. I don't even know if it captured that because anyhow, okay, so look, what I'm doing is I have a problem with how I'm reading right now, and that's the whole reason why I started recording. It had nothing to do with how I looked it on camera. So this is my last video, and I'm just gonna run through it real quick. I'll probably make this like a blooper. I'll probably make this something like a blooper. I worked on it for 4 hours. Well, I set a timer for 4 hours to give to this earlier. And what happened was, out of those 4 hours, I might have got 3. Out of those 4 hours, I focused on it for 3. Out of those 3 hours, I got about an hour and a half quality work. Okay, so I wanted to note that my time is being completely wasted, and these scientific attacks are having a very real effect on my energy, whether or not I can sit up when I'm working on this, whether or not I have to lay down and try to keep working on this, stuff like that. It's bad. So this video is not a regular update. I'm trying to think. Okay, so this video is not a regular update. It happens to be my last video as well. So I'm going to talk about more than one topic. Aside of what took place over recent months, I'm going to discuss parallel reality, the scientific expression, and the neighbors being a nuisance. I found while brainstorming, drafting, and editing that a rare opportunity existed for me to highlight other activity, some recent, some current, some charted, and dated events as well. As you know by now, I'm being attacked by the government. You see that? You see how they just closed it out? That's how this is set up. Oh, man. Hold on. Okay, so... Oh, they're mad about the camera. That's what's happening. That's all it is. They're mad about the camera. And let me move my paperwork out of the way. Because that's what's keeping me from scooting closer into the light. Okay, so here goes. Oh, well, so here goes. I don't know why that's doing that. So, as you know by now, I'm being attacked by the government with an illustrated collection of crimes that are not recognized by law. If law enforcement acknowledged scientific crimes, it would compromise the Constitution. Using magic as an example, magic is a phenomenon, not a delusion. A fact or situation that's been observed to exist or happen, especially one whose cause or explanation is in question. If mentioned as a weapon, or if mentioned as entertainment, observers witness without thought of explanation. If mentioned as a weapon, society will openly play stupid, even insult your state of mind. As long as the issue is being kept silent, they don't think they'll be faced with looking stupid. It's not until the matter reaches the media that they grow timid. So, the mathematical expression behind magic is physics. The misuse of physics is what law enforcement, the field of medical practitioners, and entities of law are noting as a delusion. Magic is witchcraft. Witchcraft is been found socially acceptable by constituents or citizens. How the phenomenon is witnessed or introduced affects how the issue is perceived. It's not that the claim that magic is being used as a weapon is impossible. The claim is perceived as a threat to the Constitution. Those who have a covenant to maintain their interests, be it treaty or secret society. Keep in mind, those that fly the American flag are lovers of the flag. Hold on. Okay, real quick. I just want to show you how this still is not real display. You see the difference? Like, matter of fact, it's just like all camera tricks. So, picking up where I left off. Okay, so keep in mind, those that fly the American flag are lovers of the flag. They benefit from the blood. They are not against, but behind secret societies. Very similar to those who are Egypt or Moroccan rooted. These are entities who know the basis of society structure, understand the unprincipled measures in place for them to exist, and condone the most genetically flawed being the majority. And it was a black guy who made the white guy, and in their informed identities, they endorsed the European way and philosophy, the teachings of created races, because according to their covenant, it's understood that the white fleshly outfit was designed to be both an instrument and a fall guy. Their once black creators established these ways of the world, they crashed. Found these measures like separating the land more conducive, knowing that all forms of life are dependent on enslaving one bloodline's pineal gland, the human model. You see the pineal gland in a lot of occult teachings, but no one ever tells you the true meaning behind it. Without enslaving the original woman's bloodline, nothing that Satan creates can develop without handicap. For me to be who I am, you can imagine that I'm going to have some disturbing things to say about you, to tell you about your existence. In case you haven't realized by now, I am where you get the truth. I suppose I should render a little bit of a disclaimer and a tidbit of background information on the topics that I discussed. But Uh, okay, so like I was saying that I should render a little bit of a disclaimer and a tidbit of background information on the main topics that I discussing. This began March 2017. I've been discussing DNA theft, eugenics, and demon possession, the subconscious mind attack, since the beginning. So when you look at my 2017 videos, that's what you're going to hear me talking about. You're going to hear me talking about it with not always noting it as eugenics. So I'm going to talk about DNA. They're attacking my DNA, and they're doing this to my DNA, and they're controlling this with my DNA. And you're going to hear me talk about demon possession, that they changed, they re-imaged, they did this, they did that, they made someone that loved me despise me. Those are the things that you're going to hear me talking about. Prior to the government attacking me, I can be referenced openly regarding the behavior of demons for almost 2 decades. I'm 36 years old, and I've been having these discussions since my late teens, 18, 19 years old. I can be referenced discussing how certain bloodlines are not meant to be mixed for just a little over a decade. Yeah, my brother had his first child in 2010, and I talked to him about it then. And then I reiterated that in 2013. But prior to that, I had some discussions, of course, with others, like just random people. That's where a lot of my conversation took place. I was out traveling and, or either on a deployment, and if the conversation wasn't meaningful, anyone will tell you about this. They can't tell you that I'm one to indulge in common conversation. I just won't. So if it's not meaningful, and we ain't talking about real matters, and it's crazy what I consider a real matter then is nothing like what I consider a real matter now. Like, it's just, it's gotten way too real. So, this matter that you're witnessing is an isolated one, which means that it suffers from internet censorship, amongst other things. You should know the numbers. So I have roughly 570, like a little over 570 videos, and of those 570 videos, I have about 11,000 views. And then on another sheet, ideally this was supposed to be side by side, because, matter of fact, let me show you what that looks like. Hey. Okay, so when I was going through this, this is kind of the things that, the sheets, and this is the one about the numbers, and the YouTube page and the views and stuff like that. And it just works out some mathematics, basic arithmetic, and now time. Hold on, I'm just trying to find my place. That's matter. Oh yeah, the numbers. Okay. So yeah, it worked out some basic numbers and stuff, like, regarding, what deems this a isolated matter. I'm much too popular and I'm well traveled, like a lot of people know me. And if you look at my old Facebook pages, that's what you'll see. Normally when I speak, they listen. So, now I've said this a time or two before. Like, if you feel my delivery, this is gonna get good. If you feel my delivery is too harsh, consider my fight, because it speaks for itself, and I'm beyond fed up and livid. But this also gives me a rare opportunity to explore and bring to your attention what you think if you read this on your own right now. If you read up until this point on your own, what would you think? When you hear me speak, it's different. When you hear me speak, you can hear, the innocence. There's no way to misinterpret what's being said. But if you read this, your perception can be shaped to perceive it in a different way. So anyhow, and for those of you that disagree, read it first and then listen to me. I encourage you to read it first. So, my fight speaks for itself, and I'm beyond livid. If you feel it's a vendetta against white aliens, it is not. I've known a lot of white folks over the years, but if it takes a covert, a secret operation, or stealing from me for you to exist, I do have a problem with that. I have a problem with everything that cannot physically stand on its own. Having flesh is not what makes you human. Being able to develop without assist does. And fact is, your computer and device dependent, non-human. I've said before and I'll say again, I have no sympathy for the basis of which you and other races were created. I only see you as a problem that has to go. So, and it's crazy. I'm just going to elaborate just a tidbit on that. Because imagine if white race is what they have painted themselves to be. Imagine if the white race was what they had painted themselves to be. They'd eliminated black folks by now. Because you can't motherfucking stand them. You just can't. And, it's going to come to a point where eventually I'm going to have to talk about, the two interracial relationships that I was in. Because I'm sure folks are going to want to know, my views on those things, and there's a lot of details surrounding that. I just haven't found the opportunity with this fight to fully explore that, but I'm very open about it, and you'll find that everything that I say, I don't contradict myself. That's the best thing about the truth. I don't have to remember a lie, and I can tell it like it is, and it'll all align. And the couple of white guys that I did, they had to damn near almost hate their own kind. That's the reality of it. In order to be with me, you had to almost not like your motherfucking own, because I got a problem with these things and their way, the way that they see themselves. And this is before I had all the background information about them being real genetically flawed and stuff like that. So, but I noticed too that they always took favor in me. But now I told you I know why all that was, and it's because who I am and stuff like that. So they keep checking this up. Okay. So yeah, if you do consider my delivery harsh, and just think about the covert, operations that are in place for, these things that are not human to exist, to fool you and enslave an entire fucking bloodline. That's the part that you should be disgusted and disturbed about. So if you mad about finding out that you Pinocchio, let me tell you something about a human reaction. I've been through this over and over again. For everything that I disclose that I feel might hit someone in a hard way, I've always put myself in that position. And I'm human, okay? So when I look at this situation for what it is, I'm always like, well, if we're not supposed to be anyhow, and this is really the grounds on which we're created, then, it is fucking wrong for us to be. I just have a real, a human perspective about it. You know what I'm saying? It's just I believe in heaven and hell. You get what I'm saying? I believe in portals. I believe in science. What can be explained through it. But I also know that scientific expressions or a devil is nothing but decoding a mind that's able to do these things naturally. So when Satanists catch hold of someone like me and my bloodline, they're decoding our minds and using it at their advantage. This is why this fucking world as a mess exists. You get what I'm saying? So like I said, for every situation, I always put myself in those shoes, and I always talk about how I would handle it, or I always think this through. That's the part you don't get to see. You don't get to see all the probing that's done on the government's end with remote neural monitoring. You don't get to see my thought processes completely, how I'm able to show the difference in what's real and what's not, how I'm able to justify what's real and what's not. So anyhow, in fact, this computer device, you will find that you all will find without eugenics, you're incapable of feeling at all. That biotechnology's advancements is in fact the ability to turn on and off a gene expression. For decades, they've been trying to cover up this fact by knowing it as fiction. Like they do a bunch of things, they call it science fiction. Oh, that's science fiction. Oh, that's science fiction. That was like one of the last things the doctor said to me in January 2020. Oh, that's science fiction. That's science fiction. No, these things that they're noting as science fiction are actually taking place. And there's evidence that they're actually taking place. If I spoke to you about a portal, if I spoke to you about magic, what do you think about magic? I'm like, do you know the expression, like the scientific expression behind magic? And I told it to him, and he's like, no, I don't know that. And he don't know physics. But when I brought that to the judge and the magistrate, like the magistrate and the ADM board representatives, they both knew how magic worked. But they also realized that I was a threat to the Constitution, so they weren't about to entertain it. So they're like, we gonna, you know what I'm saying, do what's wrong to try and silence her. After all this other fucking wrong has been done. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much fucking wrong that has been done in these 3.5 years. It's not even fucking funny. I'm gonna hang these motherfuckers by their penises and ponytails. Motherfuckers that can't even grow hair, got a head full of hair. Anyhow, motherfuckers that can't get a red got motherfucking penises and shit. Like, bitches that can't even produce a child on their own got motherfucking hoes. Like, that's the shit I don't have time for. That's the type of shit that makes me mad about Satanists. You get what I'm saying? Like, they overstand. They know. They already motherfucking know who they are not, what they can, what they cannot do on their motherfucking own. And then they get mad. They get mad when somebody tell them who the fuck they are. And they don't like being hit either. You better snap them up. I'm telling you, snap their motherfucking neck. Now it's the time. So I'm trying to find where I left off Pinocchio. So anyhow, I was talking about science and how I know that it's the devil, but I believe in science. When I say I believe in science, I'm not saying that it's something that I just told you about that, decoding the mind and stuff like that, but I know how real science is, that it's a real expression. So I believe in what's real. Only in a world where Satanists don't exist would science not need to be recognized. You get what I'm saying? So, where is this? Uh-oh. Okay, biotechnology's advancements, in fact, the ability to turn gene expressions on or off. For decades, the population, they've tried to cover this fact up by noting it as fiction. Artificial intelligence is what the population is a reflection of. Those who cannot develop a pineal gland would argue that they weren't Pinocchio until now. I discussed manufactured pineal glands associated with created races in my What is Gang Stalking video. And I made that video back sometime. It was another incomplete project. Speaking of incomplete projects, let me show you this. I told you I originally intended on these things, like me to be reading this outline. I was going to use the iMovie and going through this information side by side. So this is where I discussed projects. So you'll see that that's an incomplete. The I obviously means incomplete. The C means complete. This is what's taking place. And this is a timeline of literally, I've been fighting the entire motherfucking time since they showed up running their mouth to me, telling me they was going to kill my motherfucking relatives and doing it and stealing all my shit. This is what the fuck I work on. I dedicate my time to this every motherfucking day. I guess I should show all this because I'm not going to come back to it. The fuck is that? Like, get serious. Those are the type of interferences I was experiencing right here. So, of course, like at some point I get to a point where I talk about this, what took place over recent months, because like the last thing that you heard was I did my last update in May. No, March 25th, I believe it was. And then I did like the 22 days inside ordeal, and that took place in May. But the reason that took place was for me to prep for legal measures. You get what I'm saying? So like they interfered and interrupted with everything that I did. Like with the type of shit that they do, you can't get anything done. It's impossible. And all I end up having is somewhat of a record of it, but nothing solid. Well, this is solid. It's actually as solid as it fucking gets. And I'm caught on camera doing what the fuck I say I do every day. So Okay, so anyhow, created races, pineal glands, a manufactured pineal gland, all being a reflection and reliant on biotechnology, which is a branch of genetic engineers. Subconscious mind attacks are another example, better known as demon possession. It has many faces. The most extreme is what appears to be everyday folk. I've found there's only two types that exist with variations. There's moderate and severe, which is opposite of the textbook answer. So severe historically has been established as excuse me, an issue that Soviet officials faced, the fear of the identity being re-imaged or ruined, or ruining the image's credibility. Today, the most obvious display of that is demon possession, or of this form of demon possession, is LGBTQ. So, the most doubted expression would be your mom and dad. You get what I'm saying? Like LGBTQ, the only thing that makes them different from me saying that your mom and dad is possessed is that they have a different sex orientation. So you would obviously find that as something wrong. You get what I'm saying? And when you look at your mom and dad, you might not until you examine their behavior. And then there's times where you have to go a step further. You have to look beyond that, because these families in particular tiers are programmed to behave a certain way. So you have to realize that it boils down to eugenics. You get what I'm saying? So when you look at things first, you look at behavior. And if you have to look past that to accept what I'm telling you in terms of demon possession, it comes down to what is and is not possible. You know, the most genetically flawed being lead in any category, you know, their brain functioning better than Africans would and stuff like that. So okay, moderate would be those who have been labeled mentally ill. No matter how extreme the illness, their behavior has been coined a mental disorder. Another way to look at severe versus moderate would be those who have not necessarily been labeled ill for the sake of the workforce. That means they're faking balance. Now, in my other videos, I talk enough about faking balance and these numbers here. You know, there's the immortals, which is your biblical reference. And, you know, also biblically, they tell you ahead of time that you're made out of sin, but they don't go into detail about that. That's like a covert matter. You know, they're not going to tell you this is why you're made in sin. They're not going to tell you that the Adam and Eve that they're speaking of is an angelic strand of DNA that makes non-human categories appear human. They're not going to tell you any of that. And they're not going to tell you that they've created these other identities to further separate my bloodline from itself. So, numbers. You know, there's 7.8 billion population. Of that, the U.S. makes up 331 million. So, when you look at, like I said, it's employment or disability, it's a system. You know, like it's a revolving fucking system. Like everyone does the same motherfucking thing. And 178 million are on SSI. And then 155 and some odd number are employed. There's your number. And originally, like when I was doing this outline, you know, and I was breaking the numbers down, and I was like, well, 144,000 divided into 7.8 billion 8 billion people, that ended up being like 50 something thousand, you know, like that each agent would be responsible. That ended up being like each agent would be responsible for like 50,000 plus people. Okay. So, but you got to think about how many government agencies there are. You got to think about how many government agencies are. And a little bit later, I'm going to talk about moon operations and stuff like that. But so that's that. Then you have to look at the state of nations, okay? You have to factor in the state of nations, information and technology, and what makes folks a risk, or not even a risk, what makes people a threat. You know, because these agencies like the CIA, they don't view robbing and raping and murder and any of those other things that have been labeled as criminal offenses. They don't view any of that as a crime. They view those things that threaten the Constitution as the crime. So that means if you're being educated on the basis of these things and how everything is structured, that's what they're looking at as the crime. So they'll find you a criminal without you doing a you get what I'm saying. So anyhow, when you break that number down, I was talking about that, and like how you those two fall in half, you add those two up and you get your number of the US population. And then take that same 100. Oh, I was talking about the nations. Okay, so you have, we look at Americans as they're dumb. Okay, we look at Americans as they're dumb. But when you consider what Americans have at their hand, they're just not. They're not as dumb as, you know what I'm saying, you want to make them out to be. So, and I say that for a reason, because I'm talking about other nations now, and other nations don't have the same things available to them. They don't have the same things at their leisure. So docile, when you look at a nation of people and how you're deeming them docile, you know, it goes far beyond demographics. And you start looking at what's really available and what's not. So when you look at these other nations, they're like manning them, observing them. Like, you don't even have to put that type of time into watching these sort of people, you know, like even in Russia, where they're like big on trafficking and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? Like I told you already, they don't see that as a crime, they see that as a business. So we're going to throw other nations out the window. We're going to just look at the US, where we think some shit can go down, okay? Where if something stemmed, it would stem from here. And we already know who's leading technology. I'm not saying that. I'm not deeming the US as that. We're talking about the people that occupy these countries as a whole. Okay? So, do you ever think that you could riot the way that they motherfucking, not even riot, the way that they form in those other countries in the US and not get a motherfucking, they let them up. I'm telling you, it's crazy. And I got many different views on that type of stuff, because these things, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that right now, because with the topic that I'm on, is not very appropriate, so I'm not going to even go there. So these numbers, they feel they don't have to pay that much attention to them because of how they live. It's much easier to monitor them, to know and gauge what they will and won't do, especially based on their environments and how their minds are wired. So I took that same 144,000 and I applied it to the U.S. population of 331 million. I think I got like 2,299. Yeah, 2,299. And that seems like a much more manageable number, right? When you look at people that are in payroll or accounting or any other type of occupation where you handle accounts, they handle multiple accounts. They handle hundreds of accounts with hundreds of people within those accounts. But it's manageable. So the same thing goes with government agencies. I was supposed to be getting out of here. And it's getting dark. Today's November 1st. this is something that I want you and need you to know, that along with this came a demand for the least likely to succeed. Hold up. You already know the demon possession. Or LGBTQ. It was a way of changing the values. That was a way of changing and making people see fit to compromise their values. So this way that you were once programmed, but we don't necessarily want you to look at it this way anymore, and we're going to put it everywhere. We're going to put it in the media, so on all your new sitcoms in the evening that you use to escape from work, your 9 to 5, that's what you'll be taking in. And you know what, before long, it won't be rejected anymore. You'll be accepting these things as your new reality. So, along with this came a demand for like the least likely to succeed, and those who look odd. And at the end of the 2500 the 25,992 cycle approached, agencies opened up a Stargate. They opened up the Stargate in 2018. They opened up the Stargate in 2008. And opening up a Stargate is none other than opening up a demon portal. And when a demon portal is opened up, it's a way to occupy the planet with dark matter. So these are things that exist below ground. Sometimes it's things that exist above ground. And I have like some different theories on this. Speaking of different theories. So that's the type of stuff I was working on over there. I have some complex theories, and it can go a whole lot of other ways. And I haven't completely worked any of that out, because in the way that I'm being attacked, you got to understand, whenever I start working on something like this, like it just gets worse and worse in how they're attacking me. Yesterday was my 5th of 6 days with no sleep. I half slept last night, and I half slept last night because they were trying to act like that's parallel reality stuff. I can't tell you what's going on until I establish that you have a basic understanding of what parallel reality is and how it works. You get what I'm saying? So the 25,992 year cycle is called the Milankovitch cycle. And when it approached, or as it approached, they opened up this Stargate that took place in 2008. Opening the Stargate opens up a demon portal for those that operate in denser parts of the earth. The summons that Moors are referring to is my bloodline, of which there's only 2 that remain. And that's not saying that I don't have relatives. That's saying that of my bloodline, there's only me and my mother that remain. And my +1 is possessed. You get what I'm saying? My mother's possessed right now. So, and that's how they maintain their interest, by possessing our women. It's a cycle. So, and it normally takes place as soon as one of us gives, as soon as, like, if I were to give birth, none of this be going on. Like, it wouldn't be a darker age right now. You know what I'm saying? It'd still be a different time, but it would have a spin or a twist on it in terms of how light it was. Hold on. So anyhow, this is an extremely dark age because there is no other universe than this one. And, recently, of course, scientific scholars and stuff, they started putting some information out there on the internet about, a multiverse and stuff like that. Those things, they want them to be not socially acceptable. They want them to be, I think I'm about to jump into another topic. I'm just going to, it's getting dark quick. I'm just going to encourage you to read the rest of this outline. The outline itself isn't complete, you know, but I've done an okay job on it. And I think with the type of things that you've heard me say so far and what I'm saying right now, you know, you can make sense out of where I'm going with this, and you can see and hear and feel my intent for the moment, but it's the end. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's just the reality of it. It's the end. And yeah, this is incomplete. And I later, like right down here, this is all about the neighborhood, you know, the things that they've been doing with the neighbors. And some of these folks call themselves believers, and it's crazy.